back in the woods.
Morning guys, Dave Canterbury of the Pathfinder School, back out here again in South Florida talking about useful and medicinal trees of the eastern woodlands. The tree that I'm standing beside right now, or sitting beside now, is called the Australian paperbark tree. It is an invasive species within the state of Florida. It was introduced in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s for watershed and flood control. The problem is it is an invasive species now and has basically taken over a lot of areas of Florida, killing off some of the native species, and also it has other virtues that make it a good survival tool but make it devastating to the Florida landscape, which we'll talk about in a minute. The problem with a tree like this is, you know, from the research that I've done, they are afraid by the year 2024 this tree will be so well established that it will basically overrun a lot of areas of Florida, especially down in the Florida Everglades. And that can be a huge issue because of the volatile oils within this tree. The Australian paperbark is basically an endangered tree where it comes from in its native habitat in Australia, but it's very prolific within southern Florida. It is a member of the tea tree family, which means it has a volatile oil inside it that is highly flammable. And because it has this exfoliating bark on it, it's almost like paper, it is highly flammable. So when fires catch in an area that the paperbark tree is growing, and they grow in big dense groves, it just devastates the area with fire. And that's part of the problem with this. Now, the fact that it's a renewable resource and paper can be made from this product, and papyrus and things like that, we could utilize this to make paper with and take advantage of the resource that we have now that the mistake has already been made of putting it into this area. They are trying to eradicate it with biocontrols like bugs that feed on the bark of this tree, but they are not having a lot of luck getting rid of it. So since it's all over South Florida, I think it's a good thing for us to talk about, because the tea tree is very naturally antifungal. You can take the leaves, and it's an evergreen, so the leaves are there all the time. You can take the leaves and chew on the leaves and it will alleviate headache, so it's a painkiller. The oils within the tree's bark and roots are very antibacterial and antifungal, so you can use them on surface things like warts, ringworm, anything that you would use something that was antifungal on, including athlete's foot and things of that nature, will be taken care of in part, at least, by the volatile oils of this tree. So you can make a decoction, and that will be very weak, but it will have some of the volatile oils in it, and not try to extract just the oils while you're out, you know, in a self-reliant situation. You can utilize this tree even if you can't extract the oils. But one of the great things about this tree is that it's very flammable. You can see that it's got an exfoliating bark on it that's like paper, which is very much like birch has, except these things come off in thinner sheets even sometimes than birch, and in a lot more in greater quantity. It's highly flammable, so we're going to pull some of this off. We're going to process it. We're going to hit it with a ferro rod. I'm going to show you just how well this stuff does burn. So stay with me. Okay, here's a real good example. You can see all the layers of that thin paper that are coming off of this tree. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 layers right there coming off that tree that you could just peel off in a chunk. And it's almost like opening a book. There's just so much of it there. And like I said, because of the volatile oils in it, it's highly flammable. So let's go process a piece of this bark and hit it with our ferro rod and see how well it does for fire. Okay, so remember what I said about this bark having a lot of volatile oils in it and being very flammable. So we're just going to get some that's kind of in between, not necessarily in the inside Cambium layer, but kind of in between like this. And we'll just process some of this stuff up a little bit and expose some surface area. I'll move this piece out of the way. Like I said, once this stuff does flame up, it burns pretty fast. That's part of the problem in the state of Florida, is that when wildfires do spread and they catch these trees, they just go up like matches. So everything around it catches fire very easily too. And I'm just going to shred some of this stuff up and expose plenty of small fibers. Doesn't take a whole lot to do this, really. Creating surface area is a key element to starting fire with sparks and that type of ignition source. Just grab our ferro rod here and our knife out of our haversack. Now you can see, once that stuff catches fire, move these pine needles out of the way. Definitely don't want to burn the forest down here. You can see how hot and volatile that flame is from just that small amount of bark. And it took nothing to get a huge sheet of bark off that tree that we could use for fire. And it's just burning a black smoke. So you know there's a lot of volatile oils in there with that black smoke burning like that. Now the smoke, because of those volatile oils in there, because it's got a tea tree oil in it, the smoke would be, you know, good for using to keep insects away from your camp and things like that if you're burning it. You can also take a smoke bath in it. You can see here's just a piece of it I ripped off. You can see how quick it burns and how quick it goes up, and the black coming off of it. That black soot. The smoke bath in that would help keep the insects away as well. Okay guys, I'm Dave Canterbury from the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining me for this video on the Australian paperbark tree, also known as a tea tree, also known as a bottle brush tree, but it is the wide-leafed Australian paperbark is the most common name for that tree. Melaleuca, I believe, is the Latin on this. And you can look it up and do some research if you live in the Florida area. It grows all over South Florida as an invasive species, like I said. Very good antibacterial, very good for insect repellent, also very good for fire starting material. So it's a very good tree for us to understand. Even though it's an invasive species, we can take advantage of its uses. I appreciate your time, I appreciate your support, I appreciate you viewing my videos, supporting my store, my school, myself and my family. We appreciate everything that you guys do for us, and we'll continue to make videos as long as you're watching them. So I'll be back with another one just as soon as I can. Thank you guys.
Hey, I'm country, backwoods and hungry. I spend every Sunday just living good. Might do a little fishing, a little hunting on the weekend. With a bow I'll be sneaking back in the woods.